everybody, and welcome to another edition of Attack Rap. Co-hosts Zach Scribner and Adrien Mouseeau finally back in the studio, joined by a man that needs no introduction, General Manager Dale DeGray, the busiest man in the city of Owen Sound at this time of the year. Dale, thank you so much for taking the time.
Great to be here again, yeah.
I'm sure you're enjoying whether it's the OHL, NHL, NBA playoffs. What are you up to in your spare time right now?
The U18 draft, quite honestly, it's between the priority selection and then the U18, it's kind of all encompassing. But yeah, I'll watch a little bit of the OHL, on Rogers, and then of course the NHL, and watch what's going on there. So lots of hockey at this time of the year, right? Good hockey too.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of hockey to discuss about on this show in the next hour. So let's jump right into it. We'll start out with the Ontario Hockey League player and goaltender of the week, coming from the same club in the London Knights. Denver Barkey is the Ontario Hockey League player of the week, while Brett Brochu of the London Knights as well is the goaltender of the week, helping London skate to a 4-1 series win over the Kitchener Rangers last week. Barkey started the week with a goal and a pair of helpers in a 5-0 shutout win in Game 4, while Brochu stopped all 25 shots that came his way. Barkey went on to pick up first star honors in Game 5, punching London's ticket to the Western Conference Championship Series with a pair of goals and a 4-0 win over Kitchener. Brochu had a quiet night in the crease that evening, turning aside all 16 shots. Let's now take a look at the Ontario Hockey League Playoff Series bracket, and the London Knights and the Sarnia Sting go head-to-head in the Western Conference Final. Game 1 is Friday in London. This is Sarnia's first time making it past the conference semi-final. The Sting swept Saginaw in their second-round series. Turning to the Eastern Conference, the Peterborough Petes eliminated the Ottawa 67s last night in Game 6, winning the series 4-2. The Petes were up 5-1 entering the third period and just held on to win by a score of 5-4. Connor Lockhart had a hat-trick for the Petes last night, a great story there, after a very disappointing Sunday evening for himself, losing his grandmother and then scoring a hat-trick the next night to help the Petes move on to the conference final. Tonight, North Bay and Barrie battle in Game 7 in North Bay for the final spot in the Eastern Conference Final. The game was 2-2 late in the third last night in Game 6 when Tyler Savard scored his fourth goal of the playoffs just with 2 minutes left to force Game 7. There's a lot to go discuss here tonight. We're going to try our best to keep everybody updated on the score in the next hour.
And we'll start off, Dale, with the busy weekend that you just had. You guys had the Ontario priority selection, as you mentioned previously, and you guys selected in the first round, 12th overall, Nico Addy of the Toronto Junior Canadiens. When making that selection, what you see in Nico throughout his minor midgets or U16 season?
Well, Nico's he's a big, strong horse. I mean, I think he's 6'4", 205 pounds. Yeah, he can play any way you want. He's got skill. He's a very good skater for his size. So if you want to play tough, he can play tough. You want to play skilled, he can play skilled. So I see. Well, down the road there'll be great growth in him, not just in his size, but just in his abilities to play and be accountable probably right from next year.
Now, did Nico's value increase throughout his OHL Cup run with the Toronto Junior Canadiens on the way to an OHL Cup championship, or was he always set in stone in your mind as around that area in the draft?
Yeah, he was one of those guys that I think, obviously when you go to watch him play, his size is going to draw your attention to him right away. But then you start watching him and you see the little things that he does. But for us, he was on the radar probably right from November on, and he just continued to shine and continued to play well. And there's no reason not to like those guys, especially with that size. But no, whether they won or not, it didn't really have any bearing on what we were thinking. And I think they were actually a team that I think really probably, I don't know they won, but they kind of underachieved throughout the year. And they were lucky they had a good enough, deep enough, skilled enough team that regardless, they pulled it out.
Now, Greg Cowan of the Sun-Times reported in a latest article that Nico Addy might not report, or you guys are having discussions right now, he's weighing his options. What can you comment on that situation?
Yeah, I know he's, we've certainly had some talks, and there certainly seems to be a little bit of bending and at least some interest on seeing what we can provide and the OHL can provide. But yeah, as of right now, he's looking to go to school, maybe going to a prep school next year. You know, my take is that he doesn't really play prep school hockey. He doesn't. He plays OHL hockey, and why not, you know, put both feet in and get going right away. And like I said, we're getting some traction, and we'll you know, hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll get a little bit more traction.
Now, at the trade deadline, you acquired Landon Hookey, Jackson Stewart to get bigger and stronger. And in the first 6 picks of this draft, everybody was over 6 foot. So you're clearly making a statement here just in your picks that you guys want to get bigger and stronger. You guys have the skilled guys of Servac, Petrossi, Cedric, Gaindeau, the young skilled guys. Now you need a little bit more size, right?
Absolutely, that's what I feel we need. And not only did we get bigger, like I think you're right. I think everybody in the first, you count the goalie, probably 6'1" and above. And honestly, but they're not just big guys. They're big and have skill. So I just look at that and I go, how can we not try to bring that sort of into the mix that we have? We have some smaller, average-sized guys that I think are very skilled, and I think once you blend the guys together, I think it's could lead to something pretty special.
Now, I said it in our group chat. I'll just throw this out there on that Nico Addy pick. I only watched one game of minor hockey this entire season, other than the games that I refed, and it was the OHL Cup Finals. And the one guy that impressed me on that ice was Nico Addy, and I think he uses his size to a strength of his, especially against the kids his own age.
There's no question he does. And the thing is, like I said, let's call him 6'4", 200 pounds. He's 15. And he's a really good skater for his size and his maturity and his he's looks like a player. Mm-hmm. And it's hard not to look past that. He's very coordinated for his size and his age. I just see nothing but upside with him.
We're going to break down a huge chunk of the latest draft class for the Owen Sound Attack. In the second round, you select Jake Crawford, who put up 26 goals and 53 points, who was on a very good York Simcoe team. What will Jake bring to the Owen Sound Attack in his Ontario Hockey League career?
Oh, I see Jake as Gavin Bryant with about another 3 inches. And he's a 200-foot guy. He's got very good feet. He's got really underrated skills, puck skills. He plays power play, penalty kill. He competes every shift. A really, really nice get for us in the second round. I think maybe we stepped up a little bit maybe to get him, but he was a guy that I think when our staff talked about, you know, who we should look at in the second round, no matter who we took in the first round, he was a constant going in the second round, Owen Sound.
In the third round, Gabriel Smith, selected out of the Toronto Marlboros program, the first defenseman selected by Owen Sound in this draft class. First, what stood out to you from Gabriel's game throughout his U16 season?
Well, 6'3", 190, and he has a very good understanding of what he is. He has no problem identifying with being a stay-home, hard to play against, good first pass, move the puck to the forwards, you know, add the second wave of attack if he can. Not that I think he'll do that as a 16-year-old, but as he gets into the 18 and 19-year-old year, I could certainly see that. He makes good plays with the puck, but he keeps his game simple. And even talking to him, he certainly buys into it, which is a lot of times as a 15-year-old, they don't want to buy into that. That's what he is. And he's a strong kid.
Now, this is a question purely off script. When you're drafting players like Nico Addy from Toronto Junior Canadiens and Gabriel Smith out of the Marlies, how close do you have to watch these guys to really know what their skill level is, because they play on such stacked and really well-known programs in the GTHL especially?
That's a good point. But I can tell you, we probably watched both kids maybe 20 times. So it's not like it's a one-off or you see 4 or 5 times. You have a concentrated effort. I mean, and part of it too is that they have so many good players on the team. You can't always go and watch 3 guys because all of a sudden somebody has a 4-point night and you're going, holy smokes, look at this guy, right? And that's just the way that it is. But how we sort of allocate viewings is that we identify players that we think are attack type players. So we mark that on the
Scouting
RinkNet, the
report.
system, yeah. So that every time that somebody goes, if it's color coded and it comes up red, then anybody that's at that game has to do a report on those players. So you get, I'm saying 20, it might be 40.
Now, you talked about guys having big nights, 4-point nights. Well, your next draft pick had an 8-point game, including 6 goals and 2 assists, and he hit airwaves in the month of November with that 6-goal performance. Harry Nancy was selected out of the Nepean organization, 6'1", 165. Clearly can score goals if you score 6 in a game at the U18 level. What did you see in Harry's game?
Good size, great athleticism, really good skater, like really good, really fast. But what I like about him the most is that he can play with the puck at high speed. Like some guys have lots of speed, and then when the puck goes on their stick, they slow down to be with everybody else. Some guys have great puck skills, but their feet are average. This guy has the both in a combination, and I think it's going to be interesting to see. You know, it's funny, coming up today, his agent called me and said something that I didn't know is that he's got tremendous size. I mean, in his family, so 6'3", 6'5" uncles. So who knows where he gets to? Could be very interesting.
Wow.
Was this a player that you were maybe surprised about falling to the 4th round? I noticed he played Team Ontario this past season, and I think usually those guys, you know, they're top of the draft class and maybe get more stock playing for Team Ontario. Were you surprised he was still there to you guys?
It's hard to. I don't put a whole lot of, weight in that when they play for those teams, because quite honestly, when the list came out for Team Ontario, I think a lot of people questioned some of the picks that were on the team. I'm not saying, Harry, but for some of them, yes. So it is what it is. But no, he was a guy that we thought could maybe go in the 3rd. We didn't really think he'd be a 1st pick or a 2nd round pick, but you sort of slot your guys out, and you fingers crossed. And talking to the agents this year, I think Sean LaForge and I, we talked about it, and everybody was telling us that their guy was going in the 2nd round. There must have been 60 kids going in those 20 picks. So we had to know somebody's going to fall, right? And hopefully you allocate your list appropriately, and you get the guys that you want.
Before we go to the next question, do you ever score 6 goals in a game?
No, I scored 4 at once. So
That's
in the
impressive.
American Hockey League, yeah.
Wow. Valiant, look that one
There
up
you
at
go.
home. There you go. Dale DeGray, a goal scorer. Who would have known?
Against Moncton, New Brunswick, against the Fredericton Express, Clint Malarchuk was the goalie.
Wow.
That's a trivia question for next year's Attack Draft.
you go.
So keep that one on file.
Yeah.
Now, a local tie to the draft class this year, Hudson Wiles, a Port Elgin kid, playing for Barrie. What'd you see out of Hudson's game? And nice to get a little local flavor in the deal as well.
And the local part, I'm going to be honest with you, I kind of thought when we looked them up that Port Elgin was maybe his birthplace, and that it just kind of stuck there. Because I'm thinking Port Elgin and Barrie, like who's commuting, like where, right? Anyways, for me that was just didn't make any sense. But talking to them on the phone, that's where he is. Goes to St. Mary's right here. So I love this kid. Smaller, stocky, good skills. But one of the things I liked about him the best was that if he ever got beat one-on-one, he made sure he arrived back at the crease and let the guy know. He's got some bite to his game, and he's got lots of skill.
And not only 5'8", it's something nice that you like to see in a guy like that. And this is the next question. It's kind of off the cuff here. You said he's going to St. Mary's High, and I know that a lot of your guys go to OSDSS. Would you get him to move schools, or would you like him to stay in the same? I know he would move to Owen Sound if he were to make this. Is all hypothetical, though.
Okay, for starters.
Yeah, first of all, this is all hypothetical.
Put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, exactly. He's got to make the team first, of course. But is that something that you guys would do? Would you change that in a player's lifestyle?
We would have to. And the reason that we would have to is because it's we have a kind of a working relationship with the other school, right? So, and Sarah Rao, who does a phenomenal job for us, it would just make life so much harder for everybody. You know, the kids now, they know the program. The school knows the program. They have their relationship with Sarah. So, you know, whether he wants to hear that or not, I would be, you know, pushing hard because, you know, we practice from 2:30 to 4:30 every day. That's gonna cause some problems. And then especially when we, you know, we're sticklers on school. It's not a part-time thing for us. It's full-time, and he would probably be better suited to be with the group and then carpooled around to make sure that he gets to his classes and then gets to the rink on time for practice.
Again, he has to make the team first.
Goaltender Matthew Kaprowski selected out of the Elgin Middlesex Canucks program, a third goaltender in the system, and now Nick Chenard's graduated from the Owenstown Attack, so you find yourself with a bit of a younger goaltending core. Where does he fall in the line alongside Corbin Vaudry and Carter George?
Right there. You just said it. He just falls in line. And that's, you know, hey, listen, I want nothing more than I don't care what pick you are, but come to camp and force us to make some decisions. I tell the boys that every single year before they even step foot on the ice, because that's what it's about. It's an audition, and do what they can with it. But that's basically what it is. And we all know it's going to be hard to crack the goaltending, but I can tell you this: he's a guy we targeted. He was one of our top 3 goalies that we had in the draft, and we designate goalies at certain spots. This year, he was the goalie that we thought we wanted in the 4th round with the first pick there, and we got him. So we were ecstatic to be able to select him.
Was there a player from this year's draft class that you would consider a steal? Once again, maybe one of those players that you weren't expecting to get a kid in a certain draft round?
Just to remind the folks at home, you said 2 years ago Colby Barlow, and last year was Carter George were your 2 steals.
So they turned out okay?
Yeah. Pretty good
Pretty
steals.
good if you ask me. Not to put this pressure on.
No. But I think, like for me this year, I think the Prudhomme kid, I really believe that there's something, he's going to bring a big grit factor. He's a miserable kid. Like on the ice, he's miserable. And I love it. And so for me, he's that guy. I thought he would have gone a little bit earlier because he's one of the few like really miserable kids in the draft. 6'1" plus, 100. I think he's about 190 pounds. I think he may have had the most penalty minutes in the draft. So he checks a lot of boxes, right?
Now, talking about Lucas, are those players more and more hard to find? You said there's only a few of them in the draft, but you see all these kids working on their skill and development. It's a lot of that, but hockey hasn't really changed. You still need grit, and you still need determination. And you address that at the trade deadline, getting Landon Hookie and Jackson Stewart. But more and more, is there less and less of those?
Less and less, and it's like you said, everybody. Because it's easier to play that way, you know, play on your toes. Do you know what I mean? I call them fancy dancers, but it's kind of easier to play that way. Boy, playing with the grit factor and playing hard and being hard to play against. I can tell you, I talk to all kinds of scouts in the NHL and player development guys. That's what they want. They want that gritty guy. They don't care if you're 5'8" or 6'8", but come with some grit, you know. Battle, win puck battles, win space, and just play hard.
Now, this was a player that didn't come to the Owenstown Attack, but Matthew Schaefer goes first overall to the Halton Hurricanes. I just want you to touch on his game a little bit because he goes to the Midwest Division and the Erie Otters. What's he going to bring to the Ontario Hockey League that's going to make him so hard to compete against in his Ontario Hockey League career?
Well, he's got size, he can skate, he sees the ice, he runs a power play, he has the ability to win battles. There's nothing that he doesn't do. He was in a class all by himself to me in this draft. There was him, and then there was probably 2 or 3 other kids, and then the rest of the group. But for me, he was the one and only. It's too bad he's on our side and he couldn't have gone to the East. But you know what? I'll almost bet you in a couple of years he'll be somebody for the fans to come and really take note of. He's going to be a special player.
So the Midwest Division gets even tougher, what you're saying on the back end, when you look at Guelph and Cam Allen, Kitchener, Hunter Brustevich is building up a career. Sam Dickinson's probably the first defenseman selected in the NHL draft next year, and then Matthew Schaefer. So the Midwest Division just gets harder and harder.
Welcome to the Midwest. But I always tell the kids, I said, you don't want to play anywhere else, because it's competition after every night. It's
you're not going up against a bad team.
That's how you get better, and you've got to prepare. And you find me a consistent player that plays on our side, I'll show you a real good player.
Very fair. I'm next, sorry. Drafting isn't done though. You talked about it a little bit earlier. U18 priority selection is coming up. You've hit some gems in the past. Caleb Pearson, you guys traded for him. He was drafted by Flint, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes,
and then but he was in the U18 draft. Logan Sage, another one. Is this a draft that you hope to hit a home run?
Well, boy, I don't know if I could sit here and say you hope to hit a home run, but I can tell you that our staff, we go through the process the same way we do the priority selection, and that is, it's an opportunity for us to grab another, depth person. Whatever they become, that's going to be on them. But if we can grab somebody that has a chance to play, that's what we have to do. It can't be for favors and kicks and giggles. And I think maybe when this first started, I think guys were doing it for favors for people, and then I think the teams have started to realize that, hey, you know what, we can make ourselves better by going through the process and picking up a player or two, and they can all have the ability to push to move forward.
Now, I want to know some of the process of drafting in this U18 draft. These are kids that re-enter the draft. How much stock do you take in from this season? And do you guys ever go back into your files and your scouting reports from their U16 season and maybe make a little bit of comparison and said he's still at the same level of his game or he improved this year?
Yeah, I can tell you the first thing that I do, I mentioned to you guys about identifying players throughout the draft and color coding them to be attack type players. First thing I do is cross-reference those color codes. So if there's a boy that comes up and he has an asterisk by his name that tells me that we've identified him the year before as an attack type player, maybe he didn't get drafted. Obviously, we didn't draft him. So if that's the case, then he would be first and foremost for me to follow up on. But after that, it's watching video, it's taking calls from agents, and then looking up players, and then looking at our reports from the year before, from this year, and then seeing exactly what you're saying. Are they more encouraging now, or are they sort of falling off? As soon as they start to fall off in their U18 draft, then I kind of push them aside. And you still want to make sure you've got enough players on your list, but that list is only going to be probably, say, 40 to 50 names. It's still a bit of a crapshoot, but there's certainly some good players, and that some teams will certainly have U18 picks on their roster this year.
No, I know it's called the U18 draft, and mostly you're looking at U18 players that are playing AAA. But I noticed this year there was a player selected from the Leamington Flyers Junior B. Do you guys target those type of players in this draft as well?
Well, listen, if they're playing Junior B, they have to go in the priority selection, and they would have to be an ad. And I think the boy you're talking about is Hayden Reed.
Hayden Reed, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously I know about him. I've watched him play, and I think he was selected by Niagara.
Niagara, correct,
okay.
in the 4th round.
Yeah. So every once in a while they come along, right? There's not a lot of them, because most of the kids playing Junior B are usually drafted kids. There's a boy that he grew a few inches, not a lot, but he grew a few inches, but really had a hell of a year, and everybody took note of it. But like I said, they come along, and whoever drafts those players, you almost have to believe that they're making your team, or you don't take them.
Next up, Dale, one import spot left as well going into next year. Is there a player or two catching your eye leading up to this import draft, or do you maybe look to fill that void elsewhere?
Are you looking for a name?
If you want to give a name, you can give a name.
Yeah, no. There's a couple kids that I've targeted. Yeah, and I'm hoping that I have one that I really hope comes through. But it's sort of run by the agents. Do you know what I mean? We don't have a scout in Europe watching all the different leagues. So it's about relationships with agents and the ability to, when these kids come over, their eyes are wide open. Do you know what I mean? And you have to, if you're telling them you're going to do this, this, and this, you need to do this, this, and this. And if you don't, chances are you're not going to get one of their players again. So, I mean, you look at Servac, and he loves it over here, and he can't wait to get back. And so, that agency, they'll probably love to send us another player. Now,
not to talk ill of anybody, but the last two selections that you had, or two of the last selections that you had, Noah Delamont and Luke Schweingruber, were both from Switzerland, and one didn't report, and then one you guys sent home. Would you stray away from Switzerland, or is that just what happened?
No.
Happened?
Yeah, no. Listen. Noah, we would have had come over, but he signed a pro deal. He was very apologetic. He and I had a couple of really good conversations, but you don't know. You can watch all the video in the world, and you can take anybody's advice, and it doesn't always work out. So, but I'm a big believer in, if it doesn't work out, you have to move kids along. There's no sense me trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And I just think that you have to cut bait as soon as possible, and you have to identify it. And it's not easy. It's not nice to do, but it's part of the job that you kind of have to move forward. And you know what? If somebody else comes up, a European pick that somebody else has that maybe is more appealing, or you fill them with like what we did this year. We just fill them with another defenseman and move forward.
Yeah.
Just taking a quick look, the North Bay Battalion and the Barrie Colts still scoreless. 7 minutes left in the first period. Once again, the winner of that game moves on to go up against the Peterborough Petes in the Ontario Hockey League Eastern Conference final. London and Sarnia begin game one on Friday evening at Budweiser Gardens. We have to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll break down the playoff series against the London Knights with the general manager, and still plenty more to dissect from this season with general manager Dale DeGray. You're watching Attack Wrap on Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Calling all journalism students, Omni Television is once again awarding scholarships to qualified students pursuing a career in third language journalism.
The Omni Scholarship has been really conducive to my development as a journalist, and it's shown me that, having this financial support really opens up more avenues.
Omni is home to a variety of locally produced current affairs programs and daily national newscasts, broadcast in 6 languages. To learn more about Omni scholarships, visit omnitv.ca/scholarships.
Welcome back inside the Rogers TV studio. Co-host Zach Scribner and Adrien Mouseeau joined alongside General Manager Dale DeGray. We went over this year's draft class. Still one draft, and that's tomorrow. The U18 draft and then the import draft later on in the summer. Dale, let's now break down the first round playoff series with the London Knights. I know it didn't go the way that you would have wanted to. Were you happy with your team's effort, considering the London Knights moved on to the Western Conference Final, and you guys dealt with a lot of adversity injury-wise in the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you lose out in the first round, and I think everybody in the dressing room had higher hopes than that. But then moving on, really, I could care less. For me, it's about us versus them. And so, yeah, did we have some adversity? We sure did. I'm not going to, whether it's the refereeing or the no calls, however you want to go about it. I think game one, I think we absolutely just laid an egg. Mm-hmm. Surprising, going in and getting beat so bad, but sometimes that's good for you. Do you know what I mean? The next night, we come back, we tie it. You lose in overtime. Very disappointing, but because you almost think the way you come back, it should be yours to win, and then you don't, and it hurts you probably a little bit more. But then you lose players, right? So I don't know. It's there was obviously some calls that weren't made that I thought should have been, and I think even if you go back to the first, I don't know if it was the first or the second period, with Schaefer when he got the chicken wing to the face, that guy should have probably been out 5-game or a 5-minute major. Us have the power play. Maybe we score on it. Maybe we don't even go into overtime, and then you don't lose Sedley. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, hey, it's all done. It was what it was when we were playing. You lose the next game in overtime, and then I think you're down 3-love, and it's like
it's tough.
It's tough. It's a tough uphill battle for sure.
Now, we had the coaches on 2 weeks ago, and Jordan Hill was quite upset about that entire situation. And the league takes hits to the head very seriously, and then you guys have 2 blatant hits to the head, and nothing was done about it. Do you, as the general manager, contact the league about something like that?
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes even during the game. So, which I'm not supposed to, but maybe I get a little bit of leeway because I've got 16, 17 years. I don't know, but it's just I think they realize I don't generally, but when you're that frustrated, you have to sort of let somebody know. Mm-hmm. And the league's good. The Conrad Hache is good with me. We can certainly talk and argue and get our points across the best way we can, but you have to be able to walk away when it's all said and done and know that they still have the best interest for the kids. But yeah, I think when I get the most upset or ticked off is when I believe that the player's safety does come into play. Mm-hmm. And that's not on Conrad Hache or Ted Baker or Dave Branch. You got to look at the referees. Like, why? There's 4 of them on the ice, and how does some of those things not get called? And what bothers me again is when you have the ability to go to a video review and it doesn't get reviewed, and they just want to believe in what they saw. When it's easy. I mean, we've all seen it. Put a guy in the box, 5 minutes, change it to a 2, or send him out. I don't care. But we have things in place to go through the proper channels so you do get the right call.
I think that's one of the best things that the NHL has implemented is that you give and the OHL. We've seen it multiple times.
And both ways.
I think last year during the playoffs we had 30 minutes of video stoppage because of those 2 plays, the high stick and then the hit behind the boards.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, but you have that in place.
For
why
a
not
reason.
use it?
Yeah.
And you. I think the key word that you mentioned there was player safety, right? So, as referees, that's what you should be.
Yeah, and that's when it bothers me is, you're gonna, to just to see a high stick. There's I don't know how many high sticks in a game. You know, you're going to miss something. I get it, right? You're going to miss some cross checks. There's still a human element involved, but on a major penalty, I think it's easy to throw somebody in the box, put the 5 minutes up, go watch it, and decide from what you see. Maybe you missed it, maybe you didn't, maybe you're right. Who cares? You know, it's the optics.
While we're on the topic of this, I want to get your personal opinion. Do you think the Ontario Hockey League will ever get referees mic'd up like they do in the NHL?
Boy, I hope not. Yeah. There'd be a lot of beeping going on.
Yeah, that's true. It just improves the fan experience, right?
Yeah, no, it is. But you also have to remember, too, that they're dealing with 16 and 18-year-old teenagers, not, if you're going to compare it to the NHL, grown men that have already gone through this process of learning what they can and can't say, right, and get away with. I think it would be difficult, but I wish when I played they would have been mic'd up. I would have had lots of good clips.
2 weeks ago on Attack, the coaching staff preached Teos Jordan, who went from a 12th round pick to logging 35 minutes a night in the most recent playoff series against London. Maybe it's Teos. Was there a player that stood out to you from the first round of the playoffs? Maybe not like a superstar like Colby Barlow or Seti Gaindo. Maybe a player, an unsung hero, if you would, in the first round.
Yeah, probably. You know, he's probably the guy. Do you know what I mean? I would have said Cedric, because I think he played very well. He was very accountable with and without the puck. I thought he was very good. Probably Teos. You know, he really stepped up, and I think, you know, losing Seds, who's a big minute eater, I think he's one of those guys that, you know, it's almost like, okay, this is a challenge to me. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna welcome the challenge, and I'm gonna do everything I can. And I'm sure Jordan Hill had all kinds of wonderful accolades to throw his way, because I know when I talk to Jordan how much he loves the kid, but he's a hard guy not to like, right? So he competes, keeps his game simple, and then competes more.
Talking about stepping up, one player that stepped up all season long was your captain, Colby Barlow, 17-year-old. You guys gave him the pressure. The pressure was warranted, though, as well, that you gave him the C to be the captain of this team. Talking about captain and leadership alone, did he exceed expectations inside and outside the room?
First off, I think he needs to change the photo, okay, for starters. Okay, but you know what? I don't think you could have given it to a better 17-year-old, probably in the league. And I mean, one of the things we talked about prior to that was, okay, that's something better. There we go. Is it going to affect him in his draft status, right? Mm-hmm. And I think in the start of the year, he was like no goals in his first 5 games, or maybe
one empty netter through 7 games.
Yeah, something like that. But the same token, I think he might have had 12 posts. Mm-hmm. So he could have been, you know, had 12 goals, 13 goals, really, if they hit and go in, right? But he was dynamite right from the get-go. He accepted it. His teammates accepted the ability to help him out. Do you know what I mean? To help him get along as a 17-year-old. I think he had a real good leadership group surrounding him, and I think that just helps him become a real solid leader.
Before we move on to the next guy, I want to talk a little bit more about Colby Barlow, who's selected to the U18 Team Canada, like we just saw there on the screen. He had an absolute Colby Barlow goal today, running down that left wing and then sniping it high glove. Is this going to help his draft stock, or would it just stay status quo?
Yeah, I don't. First off, the U18s going over there, it's incredibly difficult for them to even medal. Okay, mm-hmm. And I know that because I've been a part of Hockey Canada. Everybody else sends their best. All their kids are done. We're the one team that the teams love to beat up on because we're Canada, and we don't send our best. There's still some real good players that have been over, but it's not our best. Mm-hmm. So for that matter, I know the NHL scouts all see it like that, and you know, do you move up a spot or two or down a spot or two? Maybe, but nobody's going from the 10th overall pick to the 40th overall pick because of a good or a bad tournament. That's not going to happen.
So I asked the question to the coaching
It's the body of work. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I asked the question to the coaching staff last week. I'll ask it to you. Colby Barlow, top 10 pick?
I think he will be, yeah. Yeah.
Just to go back into that U18, going to Europe, and I know we'll have Colby in the seat next year, and he'll say that first game against Sweden is a disappointment. Is it really that big of an adjustment for Ontario Hockey League and the CHL players to adjust to that bigger ice surface, and maybe that's why that first game is so disappointing?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of intangibles that come into play. You're sort of there. I don't know how. I know they may have played a couple of exhibition games. I don't know who they were playing them against, quite honestly. So I don't know if that ramped up level of competition would have been there in the exhibition games. Then you get the bigger ice surface. Now you have new coaches. You've played a year at least or two with a coach where you've got different philosophies and structures, and you're trying to, there's a lot going on, and you're watching video every day of this and video every day of that. And if you're on the power play, then it's more, and then the penalty kill, it's more. There's a lot to take in, and it's a whirlwind, and that's why a lot of times when you see events like this, the Canadian team will start here, and then they just slowly simmer, and then they get a little bit better to the end. Sometimes they run out of runway, and it's over before they know it. Sometimes they get going, and then they can sort of percolate a little bit, and then they win a few games, and then they'll get an opportunity to play probably for a bronze.
And one thing that you sort of mentioned there, but the fans at home might not know, is that the European teams play in tournaments all season long. They go to different tournaments in Finland and Sweden, and they play that way. So they're known to each other, whereas Canada is just a crapshoot. And it's a different team than that was at the Helenka Gretzky Cup as well, which is typically the better team that Canada would send.
I've managed it. So it's the best of the best. If you don't play for a gold in the Ivan Helenka, there's some trouble. Okay, there's some trouble. So no, the World Championships, it is what it is. And you know what, most Canadians when they go over, what irks them the most is that, you know, when you play against the U.S., because the U.S. has played all year, their U17 teams together, they play in the USHL, and they're together, they go to all the tournaments, then they go over there, and sometimes they actually even make a few adjustments with their roster to even add a couple of kids that have had a real good year. So they're really flying high, and they, of course, they love to give it to us if they get an opportunity, and that's usually one of the only spots where they get an opportunity.
Now, we'll talk about a kid that had an opportunity this year. We'll get back to the attack here. Sam Sedley was given the opportunity to be the #1 defenseman on this team, and he stepped up, and high praise from Jordan Hill as well. The minutes that this kid crushed all season long, and then playing forward, playing defense, he was all over the place. You see it right there on your screen, 56 points in 66 games. That's pretty impressive from a former 4th round pick about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. The growth in this kid's game, Sam Sedley, has been quite astonishing.
Yeah, he's today's defenseman. He is, you know what, he's such a fluid skater, and he's so elusive. I wish he could put on a little bit more weight and get some muscle. But skill-wise, his thought process is really off the chart. I mean, he can make something out of nothing. Just put the puck on his stick, and it's like, look one way, spin back the other, put it between your feet, and now he's on a breakaway, and you're going, what just happened there, right? So, yeah, I think he would be a tough guy to play. Like, as an ex-defenseman, he'd be a tough guy to play with. But you know what? If you put him with a guy that just wants to give him the puck, you're probably going to have some success and probably pick up a few points just because. I don't think he's a forward. I don't think he's a centerman. The coaches know my feelings on that. But it is what it is. He's a talented kid, and when you're short-manned and you want somebody to create some offense, he's sort of the guy you want to throw in there. But he really is today's defenseman.
Now, you've had some incredible offensive overagers on the blue line, Brady Lau comes to mind, Andrew Parrott. Do you see him potentially exceeding the numbers that they put up in their overage season in Owen Sound?
Yeah, I'm going to put some pressure on him. I think he should get 80 points.
With that, how many goals? Because he doesn't. I feel I might be. This might be my own opinion, but I feel like he gets the puck in shooting situation and he defers to his pass. He has great vision. That's his one of his best skills, if not his best skill, is his vision and his hockey IQ. But I think he should shoot the puck a little bit more to allow a little bit more of a threat. That's my personal take.
Well, I love Seds. You got to be able to shoot the puck to shoot the puck.
And he shot the puck in what,
Fair
game
enough.
1 or game 2, bar down against London?
Yeah, it'll just be a snapper. It'll just be a little snapper, a little trick of the wrist, and it will be bar down because that's where he likes to go. But he's a playmaker. He sees, like you said, he sees the ice. I have no problem with him not shooting, but I can tell you when he eludes the first guy coming out to check him, and he can get to the top of the circles, I have no problem. He can rip it all day long from the top of the circles.
Let's talk about the graduating overage class now for the Owen Sound Attack. And we'll start out with Nolan Seed, a first-round pick to the Owen Sound Attack in 2018. Played his entire career here in Owen Sound. If COVID didn't happen, maybe he's up there with Kevin Cutting in terms of games played for this franchise. Could you have asked for a better character guy in Nolan Seed to also lead the way for this hockey club this year?
Yeah, I'm just. You guys know I'm not a stats guy, so I'm looking at that, and I'm really proud of Nolan because, one, the longevity he's had with us, and I think you're right with the COVID. He may have even been better this year because of, if he had played the amount of games that he should have. But I am so, and he knows that I'm so proud of the way that he played this year. So for him to put up numbers like you just showed, I think that's where he wanted to be when he was 18.
Yeah.
And there's the missed year and stuff. But good for him for sticking it out and continuing on. I know the coaches loved him and used him in all different situations. But I was really happy with the year he had.
Coming into this season, Nolan Seed had only 29 points in his entire OHL career, so he exceeded that all in one season with his 33 points.
He said it here on Attack Wrap, and I don't have the ability to go back and watch every goal that he scored. It's always a second period at the base shore. He always loves shooting at that end of the net, that end of the ice. For whatever reason, he's a second period goal scorer. Next up, the Swiss Army knife for the club this season was on full display, whether it's line 1, line 4, or on the back end in game 3 and game 4. And this was a guy that killed you guys previously with the Guelph Storm. Would you say this was the best trade you made this season, acquiring Matthew Pappas?
Well, it was, whether it was the best trade or not, I don't know, but I can tell you it was easily the easiest trade for me to make. With what I had to give up for him, it was a no-brainer. Like, because of exactly what you said, he played against us last year. As soon as I brought his name up, our coaches was like, yeah, he played defense last year for about 15 games, and he killed us. Yeah. Like, we would have thought, yeah, you could, expose him and stuff, but there's no way. And I liked him as a player. I talked to some of the guys in Guelph. When we got him from Niagara, they were shocked that they were moving him. So no, I was. He's one of those guys that when he comes in, you meet him, you let him play, and at the end you're going, you know what? I'm glad I got to know Matt, and it was. He was a fun guy to have around. He was a real good player for us in the short span that he was with us.
The final away is Nick Chenard. He had a very busy offseason already. Committed to Dalhousie University. He played backed up a game with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And in this season, he cracked the top 10 in wins and games played for the Owen Sound Attack organization. Overall, what do you make of Nick's time here in Owen Sound?
Yeah, Nick. Listen, we had a lot of high hopes for Nick. Coming in, being a big-bodied kid that has got a great attitude. He really was pretty quiet for the most part. I think this year he would probably even say that it was a little bit of a struggle for him. But you know what? That's goaltending. And goaltending has a ton to do with what's between your ears from time to time. I'm hoping, I really am, that he'll go out east, play in some games. I think he has the ability to really, really open some eyes. I know how good he can be. And I think that if he goes out there and plays, it's really good hockey. And if he can put up some really good numbers, because he's got the one thing you can't teach, and that's his size, still could be interesting for him to open up some doors.
Look at the numbers he put up, I believe, before he went down for injury. You guys were leading the division, and he was a big part of it.
He was.
But with that, how cool was that? I assume you got a phone call. My overage goaltender just got eliminated from the playoffs, and now he's up with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I did not get a phone call. I got a text from Jeff Merrick saying that is that true? Your goaltender is going to be playing in Florida? This is the truth. He says, I hear your ex-goalie is going to be playing in Florida tonight.
So you're thinking Mac.
I'm thinking Mac Guzda. And I text him back 4 question marks. Like, what are you talking about? And then he says, your overage goalie got called up to the Leafs. He's going to be playing or backing up in Florida.
Matt Guzda was an OA here.
Yeah. So then I had to call him. I go, Jeff, like, what are you talking about? Like, because so then he was the one who informed me, and then I found out more. I heard that there was a tryout in Toronto with 5 goalies.
Yeah.
And then they selected him, and then they must have had Anuska as number 2, I guess,
and
because he went.
Richard.
Oh,
there's 3 goalies there.
Okay,
That happened. Yeah, it's crazy. Like they all went to Toronto, and then they flew out there.
And good for him, because it's you know what, it gives him a little bit of that. Hey, this is what it's about. And I did hear that the guys on the team, treated him like gold, which is fantastic. That's what a great experience for him.
I heard that he finished his trip out in Florida with breakfast with Ryan O'Reilly and Austin Matthews. So
there you go.
What more
Not
could
so
you ask
bad.
him? Hey,
Not
he
so
made a
bad.
contribution right away. It was on Twitter pregame. They broke a ceiling tile, and there's Nick helping clean it all up. So
Well, there you go.
now let's talk about the overagers going into this year. As it stands, 5 potential overagers on the roster going into the upcoming season. I'm sure playoff performances go into the decision. What other factors do you look at narrowing down that number to 3?
Well, silver dollar? No, it's the body of work. It's the body of work. It's it can be. You know what? I haven't really been in this situation before where you have 5 that you can really, 5 really good players that we would welcome them all back. Problem is, the league has rules we can't. So, I'll be straight up at this point. I haven't really given it a whole ton of thought. Which guys would be back? Obviously, if I was to say one, I would say for sure Sam Sedley will be back, looking at our group. But it's hard. It's when you look at it, they can all play, they can all contribute in their own ways, for sure. And look, they should all be in the league. They're all good character kids that play well. If they're not playing for us, I'll do everything I can to make sure that they get a home and a chance to play and play regularly and have success.
Next year seems to be the year to potentially put most of your chips in to bring this city a second Ontario Hockey League title.
Pressure, eh?
Just a little bit. Now that you've had time to reflect, though, what are your expectations for next season?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, we'll see, and I say this all the time. Let's see in September where we're at, and where other teams are at, right? Obviously everybody knows that Saginaw is going to be all in for all the right reasons. Listen, I think we have a very good team. I think, with some of the pieces that we know are coming back, you throw Carter George in there as one 17-year-old that we can sort of pencil in to make sure that, our tandem's going to be as good as probably any in the league. You have 5 returning defensemen, 12 returning forwards. I think 7 of our top 9 scoring point producers are coming back. I think our top 6 are coming back. So if you can keep the puck out of the net and you can add offense, I think you're starting out in the right direction.
Now, last year on the coaching staff, you guys lost Joey Hishin and Sean Tico came about. Should the fans at home be expecting the same 3 guys behind the bench?
I would say, as I'm sitting here today, there's no reason not to bring them all back. We want them all to come back, for sure.
Just to keep everybody updated at home, the episode's flown by. The Barrie Colts leading the North Bay Battalion by a score of 1-0, and a name that's killed the Owen Sound Attack in his Ontario Hockey League career. Bo Jelsma
Bo Jelsma.
has the opening goal. It's in the intermission. We won't be able to provide any
I thought you were going to say
updates.
Cardwell, so.
Yeah,
Ethan
so
Cardwell's had a great career and signed an ELC with San Jose as well. I just want to give an opportunity to update the fans at home as well. I'm not sure if you have the answers. Some very scary incidents that happened later on in the season. Tomislav Brennan, the hit in Sarnia, and of course Sam Sedley in the playoffs. Are those two doing okay?
I believe so. Tomislav, before he left, when we had our exit meetings, he was feeling a lot better. And not just feeling a lot better, he looked a lot better. So, look, it's a long summer. And I got to believe that things will be okay for him moving forward. And Seds, well, I'm sure he's going to be fine. You know, he usually is. He's a pretty resilient kid. I mean, obviously, both kids, you only want them to be better and healthy come September, and you know, healthier before that because they need to train to get better for that. But some scary situations for sure.
I want to. It's hard to go on Attack Wrap without talking about Carter George, especially what happened throughout the season.
He played 10 games.
He played 10 games, but then he didn't play in the Junior B playoffs.
He wasn't good enough.
What do you expect from him next season?
Well, it's amazing. You bring that. He almost has like a cult following around here.
I saw 2 jerseys in his hands.
It's crazy, but you know what? And not just that, but his teammates love him. You know, when he comes into the rink from playing junior or not playing Junior B, and when he comes, and it's the guys they love to see him. He's got a great attitude. He's a positive influence, and he does a great job. But let's just pump the brakes a little bit. He's 16. He had probably some emotional success. Next year, when the rubber has to meet the road and each game means something, and not just a means to stick around, when the 2 points mean something, you know what? It's going to be a little bit more difficult, and there's going to be a little bit more pressure. I'm not saying that he won't grab it and run with it. I love the idea of having 2 good goalies that they can push each other to be their best. I think we'll probably see the best out of both of them next year. I think it'll be fantastic.
Well, I guess we're not giving Carter George the key to the city of Owen Sound.
Not just yet. If he brings an OHL title next year, Zach, you guarantee it. He's getting it.
We're all out of time, Dale. You're always honest with us. You provide great answers every time. Thank you very much.
Hey, anytime, guys, like I say, anytime I'll be here. Just give me the call.
General Manager Dale DeGray of the Owen Sound Attack, the season finale of Attack Wrap next week. Mark McKelvey, the voice, play-by-play on Rogers TV, will join Adrien and I in studio. You'll have an opportunity to win a signed jersey from this year's team from the Owen Sound Attacks and future NHLers on that jersey. Once again, thank you for tuning in to this edition of Attack Wrap on Rogers TV.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Your mouth can do a lot of amazing things. And your mouth can save a life.
Hi, I'm Tom Wong. I'm just one of close to 1,000 Canadians in search of a stem cell match. We need your help.
A simple swab is all you need to register on the National Stem Cell Database. You could be the one to save a life. Find the hero in you.
Calling all journalism students, Omni Television is once again awarding scholarships to qualified students pursuing a career in third language journalism.
When I found out that I won an Omni scholarship, I honestly wasn't expecting it. Winning an Omni scholarship helped me realize that I chose the right career